Figure Depot. Today we're going to take a look at all the Marvel Legends She-Hulks and one little extra that you see right there on the right hand side in the back, which I hope is the direction that Hasbro eventually goes with their She-Hulk figures. Would love to see a TV series figure of the She-Hulk coming up soon. That would be awesome. So definitely looking forward to the series on Disney Plus and hoping to get a figure to go alongside it. First up, we have the 2006 Hasbro release. This was the Blob Build-A-Figure Wave, and very good size She-Hulk for its time, and they're doing them now in essentially the same scale. I'd like to see them just maybe a ½ inch taller, but still a good scale. They're much larger than your standard female figure from Marvel Legends, so it certainly works. Some standouts from this original release are the big ball-hinged hips, which I don't like. They just detract from the sculpt to me. They stand out and they just look funky. And the paintwork on this was pretty nice for its time. That purple is a little too pink on her bodysuit. It should be more purple, but the metallic sheen to it is very, very nice, and it looks very good. So props there. It's a very good first attempt at a She-Hulk, I gotta say, especially for its time. It's held up very well. People still use this figure in action figure photography, and it definitely still holds its own. A couple glaring issues: no ankle rocker on the, or ankle pivot, I'm sorry. They do have ankle rocker, but no ankle pivot. That really set the figure back, so you can't plant the feet in dynamic poses very well. So a lot of people just end up hiding the feet, but still a good figure and a very nice sculpt. The hair on this thing, her hair sculpt, looks really, really good. It's a very attractive sculpt. The face looks nice. I did paint the hair a darker color because it was just a bit too bright. I think I went a little too dark. I'm probably gonna lighten it back up again and go with like a very, very dark green. I just did a matte black, and it's just a little too dark. No highlights or anything, so I may dry brush some dark green on there. But anyway, great figure. Not a bad way to start their foray into the She-Hulk arena. Just to get a real quick up close look at the figure and some of her detail, you know, looks very nice. The sheen on that is very pretty on the bodysuit, you know, so definitely did a good job. Wrinkles in the bodysuit look very nice, and her legs always look a bit like frog legs to me. Not just because they're green, but the shape is very strange. But anyway, and there's her little boots down there, her shoes or whatever. Very much 90s workout gear. So, and you can see the little factory markings where they told the people who assembled them whether to go left or right, which are painfully obvious on the figure. So, just funny. Hasbro's next attempt at She-Hulk was from the original comic run in the 1980 issue 1 release, and it is the Savage She-Hulk, as it was titled. And so the sculpt is decently proportioned, although she is extremely undersized. She's about an inch and a half shorter than the other figures, and the same height as a standard female figure. So I don't know why in the world they downsized her so much. She was part of the Fin Fang Foom wave and would certainly have been undersized with that wave and all the other figures in the wave. So her articulation still a bit rudimentary. Had not graduated to double jointed elbows and knees at this point. We would first see that with the A-Force release, which we'll look at next. But the face sculpt on this one is very nice. I like it a lot. Some people don't like it, but I don't know. There's something about it that I just like. So I think it's an attractive sculpt. I like the color green on this figure. Just a little bit of yellow highlighting here and there to you know, contour the muscles and stuff would have probably added a lot to this figure. We still don't have ankle pivot, I keep calling it ankle rocker, on the feet, and so something they hadn't quite worked into yet. But the rocker had a lot more dynamic range on this figure than the Blobwave She-Hulk did. She had a very, very slight front and back movement. This one, she can point her toes all the way forward and all the way up, like really, really high, beyond what any human actually could. So they did good on that. They got rid of the ball socket hips, but they went with a very obvious hinge. I guess they figured since her dress would cover it up, nobody would care. So yeah. But anyway, aside from being undersized, it's not a bad release, and they took some steps forward in articulation and not really huge leaps forward in sculpt, but probably about the same standard of quality. She is a 2008 release, just 2 years after their first attempt with the bodysuit She-Hulk from the Blobwave. But yeah, I like the face sculpt. It's not bad, especially for its time. I mean, it's come a long way in recent years, so I think they did fine with what they had. The cloth goods dress is cool, so don't mind that at all. She does have these funky hinge joints here, and also to articulate the knee, it's very limited, so they definitely could have improved that to a degree. Hasbro's next jump forward was to the A4 set, I think around 2012, if I'm not mistaken. And a really nice paint on the figure. That metallic purple looks really nice. But the proportions were just so weird on this figure. Her arms are entirely too short. Her hands should be kind of about where her upper thighs are instead of right there at her hips. So very undersized. So I think if the proportions hadn't been so awkward, this would have been a much better figure. She still has a high resale value just because there's not another version of her. Maybe Hasbro will listen to our pleas and give us some updated versions of all these older She-Hulks in an upcoming wave. That would be great. I've said before, would be awesome to have an entire She-Hulk wave where we got a TV series She-Hulk, a Savage She-Hulk reissue, a Sensational She-Hulk reissue, Fantastic Four She-Hulk reissue, because they did do a Fantastic Four version of the Blobwave She-Hulk. It was a San Diego, I think, Comic-Con exclusive, so I do not have that figure. But, yeah, it would be great to see them take another step forward. She has a similar hip setup as the the previous She-Hulk, but they did make an addition with the double jointed knees. They finally gave her a really good ankle rocker, and the sculpt, aside from being missized and misproportioned, it actually doesn't look horrible. The upper arms are a little funky, just a little bit. Her triceps and biceps sculpt is a little odd, and you know, but it's not just completely terrible. Even though it's very serious and stern, I do think that the face sculpt is actually quite beautiful, and the hair looks really nice. It's a dark shade of green with a black wash, and it just translates really well. The green on her is a bit more blue than I'd like and a bit darker than I'd like. She's probably the darkest green of the She-Hulks and the bluest green of the She-Hulks that we've gotten so far. So yeah, but that purple, look at that purple, it's beautiful. So great looking figure in terms of the paintwork. Just proportions were so funky. And how about that ankle pivot though? That was the first time we saw a nice ankle pivot, so a good step forward with this particular one. Fast forward to late 2019, what was supposed to be a spring 2020 release, but actually came out in late winter 2019 is a really amazing She-Hulk sculpt. I was not wild about the color. I wanted a green She-Hulk, and I was upset that they gave us this gray She-Hulk first. But now that I have the green one that came out the next year, I'm not bitter anymore. The hair, again, on this one's very nice. It's a dark green with a black wash, and it looks really good. She had those funky, like, ghost green eyes. This is, of course, her form where she has trouble controlling her rage, and she's in anguish because Bruce, her cousin, has died. So a unique version of the character and a more modern version of the character. I tend to prefer the classics, but, you know, still cool to get different versions for sure. The best part of these figures is the sculpt. Very strong, muscular body. I love the sculpt of the abdominal section there. Looks very cool. The rips in the jeans look very cool. Just a good sculpt overall. Lots to love about this figure. The calves look good. They're not overly sized. They look muscular but still feminine. She, of course, gets a very nice double jointed knees. Didn't go pinless yet with this figure, so, but in the legs, but she did go pinless in the arms, which was cool. So we got to see another little leap forward in the technology there with the pinless arms, and just cool with the tattered shirt torn all up and everything. Just an awesome sculpt, and got me back excited again that Hasbro's listening and finally giving us some quality sculpts with our figures. Fast forward yet again, we get the green She-Hulk on the gray She-Hulk body sculpt, which is fantastic. The one I had hoped to get all along, and so I could finally be contented. Very, very cool. The only gripe I have about this figure is the glossy black jeans. Jeans aren't glossy, so I'm gonna hit this with a flat coat and tone down that crazy glossy jeans that she's got on. And the texture on them is awesome. And the same issue existed with the previous figure. The blue jeans on the gray She-Hulk were a bit glossy, so a nice little flat coat will help tone that down. The new portrait is very nice. We'll get a closer look at that. Loving the hair was way too light. It was very, very light. It was almost the same color as her skin, and it just looked odd. So I went and painted it flat black, and then went and scraped some of it back off to bring out some of the green highlights. And I think it looks much better with those highlights in there. But the portrait is very nice. It's a very attractive figure. So loving it. Loving almost everything about this figure. So if they had darkened the hair up a little and not made the pants super shiny, there would be nothing to complain about. Great figure. Love that we get 2 fists and 2 gripping hands. These figures were the first figures to come with alternate hands as accessories for a She-Hulk, so that was good. And this green She-Hulk does have both portraits. This portrait exclusive to this version. The gray She-Hulk did not have this relaxed face, but this green She-Hulk also comes with the same head sculpt that the gray She-Hulk had. And also it had yellow eyes with black pupils, which looked real freaky. And then, of course, this portrait, which we'll look at closer, has a nice green iris with black pupils, and then the eyes themselves are white. So, but just a very, very great update to She-Hulk. On one more complaint that I forgot to mention, the arms had this crazy spike right here in the elbow. The joint, the swivel joint, just had a big square notch, and so I took an X-Acto knife and just chopped it out, and now it's a nice smooth transition from the forearm to the bicep. I think I've got one here, so we can look here and see. That's what I'm talking about, that weird random spike. Like, why did they do that? Come on, guys. So you just have to cut those off with an X-Acto knife yourself if you don't like it, which a lot of people have complained about it. Hoping they remove it at some point if they continue to use this buck in the future. But yeah, beautiful hair, loving the sculpt. Everything's great about this figure. And real quick, as promised, to look at those pretty green eyes. And her lipstick is like all dark green, a forest green with just a hint of blue in it. So definitely love that. See if I can get just a little bit better light on that for you without washing it out. There we go. And last but not least, we get this magnificently sculpted She-Hulk. This is, I think, built off of the most current figure's buck, because the height proportions and everything are the same. But it is heavily sculpted over. As you can see, the leg muscles, very, very big. The arm muscles, very big. The triceps are too big. They need to be toned down just a hair. But the paintwork is beautiful, so it's hard to complain. The calves, just slightly oversized. I had a lady in the Philippines do this for me, and beautiful paintwork, and she's a very talented sculptor. I just think the anatomy just a hair off with the triceps and the calves. And she made the chest much larger than the prototype she showed me, so that was a big surprise, pun intended. But I've commissioned a second one with toned down chest, smaller triceps and calves. But her grandmother died from COVID, and she has had a bout with COVID, so she's currently recuperating from that and grieving through the loss of her grandmother, so probably be a little while before that shows up. But so if you think about it, just take the time and say a prayer for her and her family, as they've been going through a lot with this. But anyway, her name is Nalia Christine Sanchez, and Kayumangi Creations. You can find a link to her stuff on my Instagram. So if you have a hard time getting a hold of her, that's why. She's been going through the ringer lately. But anyway, I love this She-Hulk. It is my favorite She-Hulk in my collection. And the sculpt work is beyond compare. In the right places. Like, I love the quads. The quads are perfect. I like muscular legs, so yeah, love it a lot. The paint is nice in a deep purple, not that pink purple that we saw in the Blob Wave She-Hulk. So much truer to what you see in the comic. The hair hasn't been touched. It's the same head sculpt over here. It's just been on the gray She-Hulk. It's just been repainted on the face to match the body. So, but we'll get a closer look at some of those details real quick. So, that face sculpt, really nice from the factory from Hasbro, and a really nice paint job that she did on it. Her paint shading is very nice. You can see, try not to wash it out, I'm a little close with the light, but you gotta fade from the darker greens to the lighter greens, and it just looks really, really nice. Got the Air Force Ones, that was a nice touch. But yeah, really, really nice. Love this figure. Love everything about this figure. It's just a really good looking piece and lots of fun. I've got to do some more photography. I haven't really done much with her in that. I don't know if you can tell on camera, but that's a pearlized white on the white part of her bodysuit with some like metallic blue pearl, and it looks really, really nice in hand. Probably hard to tell on camera, but anyway, just a great figure. So in closing, very cool to see the evolution of She-Hulk through the years, and awesome to just take a quick look at a customizer and what a customizer can do with what these toy companies give us. Would love to get some updated versions of the She-Hulks like I previously mentioned. Let's ask Hasbro politely to please oblige us, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was maybe showed you some you didn't know existed if you're new to collecting or new to Marvel Legends or whatever. If you got any questions about the figures, please comment below and let me know. Be sure and check out my Instagram for upcoming figure reviews and custom work and all kinds of different stuff I'll be doing. Action figure photography. So thanks again for watching. Always enjoy interacting with you, so please do comment, and I will see you next time.